Welcome back, football fans, to another episode of the Prediction Show. I'm your host, Joe, and this is oddalerts.com. We are going to be looking at not just the Premier League in this video, not just the Championship, not just League One, not just League Two, but also the National League. This is a Premier League to National League special, and we are going to be using the much-loved last 10. But what I've done is I've made some improvements to include all English teams from Arsenal all the way to Altrincham. But before we get into that, well done if you were on this from the previous video. Fantastic winner there. And we actually took quite a few off. We slimmed it. We trimmed the fat, didn't we, on this bet slip? And it still came in and still fantastic odds, really. There wasn't a video the next day because only 5.6% of those of you that watched the video hit the like button. And you know what happened the next day? I shared this in the Discord with my research and it won. So that would have been a video. So, you know, it's not my fault. And well done to this user as well. You have won Odd Alerts Pro for commenting on the last video. And the same applies to this one. Just comment down below and you'll automatically be entered into a draw to win Odd Alerts Pro. And the winner, as always, will be announced in the next video. And I'll make it really easy for you as well because I've got a question. What team do you support and how are you doing this season? And I want to know if there's anybody that watches the videos that supports people other than United, City, Chelsea. Let me know if you support some local teams and we can start a conversation about that. So let's get into this video. Let's start looking at the last 10 games for all teams in England. We can see we've got some fantastic teams at the minute. Liverpool, 9 wins out of 10 across all competitions. Wycombe Wanderers, we'll take a look at them in a minute. What I've also done to this page is the ability to open the games in a new tab. So we can see that Wycombe are away at Wigan, who have won 3 of their last 10. And Wycombe, by the way, in midweek, won 5-0 away from home. They're absolutely fantastic, as we'll see in a moment when we look at their fixtures. Birmingham as well, right up there in League One. They've won 8 out of their last 10. And in terms of winless games, QPR, which we will take a look at as well, because they are winless in the last 10. Their manager there had such a good start, didn't he, to his career. But this year it's been very, very tough. And of course, no wins in 10, made even harder by the fact that they are going to face Leeds. So we'll jump to and from the last 10 as we explore some of the data. And Wigan against Wycombe. We'll take a look at Wycombe's form first because there's a couple of things to notice. We already know about their record recently in terms of games won, but what is really impressive, is that the only defeats this season, as you can see there, have come to Wrexham and Birmingham, which, if you know your English and League One football, they are the 2 best teams in that league, or 2 of the teams that you would expect to give everybody a tough test. And they are the only teams that Wrexham, there's a lot of W's in there. They're the only team that they have lost to this season. And just in terms of the goals as well, 5-0, 3-0, 3 against Bolton, 3 against Peterborough. We'll come to them in a bit as well because they appear on the last 10 data. 1-0 there against Crawley at home, 2-2, 2-1. They've actually scored 2 or more goals in all but 1 game this season, which is absolutely incredible. Even against Wrexham and Birmingham, they lost 3-2 in both of those games. They still scored twice. And if you just look through this list, the only game where they failed to score 2 or more was at home to Crawley. Now for Wigan, it is a bit of a different picture, isn't it? Just 3 wins all season. They've conceded 2 or more goals in the last 3 games. At home, again, it looks slightly different when you just look at the home form. It becomes only 1 defeat since the opening weekend and 4 clean sheets in there as well. So this one might not be as routine for Wycombe, but I still think when you look at the odds here, the bookies are finding it a bit tough to call. So that means there could be value in double chance, in draw no bet, especially draw no bet potentially if you're looking at putting that on a double or a treble. So that is Wigan against Wycombe. Let me know as always what you think in the comments. And QPR winless as we saw. We'll take a look at the goals as well because Leeds 2.14 per home game and they've conceded just 5 goals at home. QPR have scored just 5 away from home all season. There has not been a 0-0 at home for Leeds so far this season, and they've kept a clean sheet in 57%. We'll just take a look at Leeds' home form, and we can see they've won 5 of the last 6, and they've scored 2 or more in every home game apart from when they hosted Burnley. Now, as we'll see in the last 10 data as well, not scoring against Burnley is not the worst thing in the world. It doesn't mean you're not a good team or something, or that you're not capable of scoring. So QPR, I think they're in for another defeat here, potentially away from home. They have failed to score in the last 3 games. They actually got a draw away at Burnley, but you would probably put that one down to lack of goals from Burnley rather than impressive performance from QPR. But QPR fans will be able to tell me that one definitively, because this is their form so far this season. They have won once. It is not good enough. It is relegation form. There's a few draws in there, but they need to start winning games pronto, and I don't think this is the place to do it. And the odds absolutely reflect that, by the way, 1.25. You might want to look at Leeds to score more than once. You could look at the timing data to see when Leeds scored their goals. They've conceded just 3 in the first half. And in terms of scoring first, Leeds have scored first at home in 86% of games. In terms of second half goals, it's pretty split, to be honest, in terms of the first half goals and the second half goals, which means if there is going to be a goal, could it be Leeds? Could Leeds be winning at half-time and full-time? That's something we could potentially look at as well. Now, in terms of games lost, we can see that Liverpool are the only team in England across the last 10 competitive games with no defeats. And they are hosting Aston Villa. That should be a cracking game, shouldn't it? Birmingham right up there, Walsall right up there as well. That is one that we could look at. So Walsall are second in League 2, which is impressive. And what is also impressive is that they just beat Bolton in the FA Cup. Bolton that are in League 1, above League 2, of course. And they are hosting Crewe Alexandra, who in their own right are in pretty good form. They lost in the FA Cup. Without checking the data, that could have been a heavily rotated team. Who knows? They lost 1-0 to Dagenham and Redbridge. So you would expect them to want to bounce back from this, but just in general, their form has been fantastic. And away from home, they have scored in every game since the 10th of August. This could be the standout game for me in League 2 on Saturday, and I am gravitating towards BTTS, which I believe the odds are quite nice for, 1.87. And if we look at the probability model, 1.73 are the implied odds. I'm going to add that as my prediction. But also, it means that it is a value bet, this one at 1.87. And I think 1.83 maybe on Bet365. We will check that later in the video. And you could also go with less risk at 1.5 goals as well, of course. We'll take a look now at total goals, and you can see top of the pile Chelsea. If you watch these videos frequently, you'll see that Chelsea were there 1 week and then they disappeared, and now they've come back. And it kind of coincides with the European games. They just go and pummel some random team. They were playing a team called Noah on Thursday night. They won 8-0, and that's why they're back at the top of this table. So I don't think it's of any value to look at Chelsea-Arsenal. I think that's a game that maybe I'll do a bet builder or something on Discord, and because it's going to be very unpredictable, let's be honest. Arsenal in a bit of a iffy period at the moment. This is a game that I think Arteta pretty much needs to win, or needs to put in a performance, because the performances have been lacking in recent times for Arsenal, and the results as well. They lost at Inter Milan, they've lost at Bournemouth. And for that reason, I think it's probably more valuable to look at Peterborough, to look at Barnet, Brentford. That's going to be a good game. Bournemouth, 2 teams there that have not kept many clean sheets. Brentford don't have a single clean sheet in the Premier League this season. Bournemouth, I think they've got 1, but they've certainly not got any away from home, and they are travelling to Brentford this weekend. We're going to take a look at Barnet versus Oldham first, because there is some interesting data for that one. So this is the beauty of including the National League, and this is a 5:30 game, likely on TV. I'm not sure who has the rights, whether it's BT Sports or TNT or whatever it's called. And you can see Barnet are one of the best teams in the league. They are 3rd at the moment, and they are hosting 5th in Oldham. Oldham desperate to get back into the Football League. But it's not going to be an easy game, because Barnet, as we will see now, have won every single home game, and they have scored 2 or more goals in every game since that first game at home. So Forest Green Rovers come, it's a 1-0 game, and then after that they've scored 2-7, 2-3, 2-3, 2. And for Oldham, however, they are very, very good away from home, as we can see. And you can also see that they've scored in every single away game, with BTTS landing similarly with the over 1.5 goals scored for Barnet. But with BTTS, it has happened in every game since that first away game that they played. And their opponents don't always score more than once. In fact, they've only scored more than once in 2 of their away games so far this season. So 2 very good teams coming up against it this weekend. What do you think will happen in this one? Just looking at the BTTS percentages, 63% for Barnet at home and 88% for Oldham, as we just saw. In terms of scoring, both teams have scored in every game they've played. And in terms of scoring over 1.5 goals, we see there 88%. Now, for conceding goals, whilst Barnet are scoring 2 or more in the majority of their games, Oldham have conceded more than once in just 25%, as we saw, but they do concede in the majority of those away games. So BTTS might be a sensible option. If you were going to look at Barnet to continue their run, 1.81 is the odds. For them to score more than once, it's 1.72. So given who they're playing, I don't think there's much value in going for them scoring more than once versus the win. You know, they could win 1-0, or it could be a 1-1 game. It could be a tighter game than certainly I think the bookies are expecting. So BTTS at 1.68 as well, which is probably where I would go, just due to Oldham's strength, really. They do concede, but they are quite good away from home as well. Barnet will be keen to make it 9 out of 9, there's no doubt about that. But for the odds on offer, 1.8, I'm not sure it's worth it, to be honest. Let me know what you think in the comments. Now, another team that was high on the list for goals in recent games was Bolton. Now, they had a difficult start to the season, Bolton, after losing in the playoff final last season, of course. And you can see that difficult start there. There was a bit of pressure on Ian Evatt, but he has since turned it around. 1 defeat since the middle of September, and that defeat came away at Birmingham. Again, no shame losing to those teams. Birmingham, Wrexham, Wycombe, it seems at the moment as well. No shame in losing those games. And the situation here for Stockport is an interesting one because they were absolutely battered in the week. They lost 5-0 at home. They were 3-0 down at half-time. The fans really were not happy. Now, we saw Wycombe's form, of course. Wycombe are showing that they are one of the better teams in this division, but there is now potential for Stockport to bounce back. And Stockport are a team that can score, no doubt about that. They've been on the rise in recent years. But given the situation of both teams, I think that Bolton to simply score a goal at 1.3, I think that is a nice option if you're wanting to beef up a double or a treble, you know, have something in there. Maybe you have a BTTS at 1.8 or over 2.5 goals, and then you stick in something like this, Bolton to score 1.3. They just need to score, it doesn't matter when, you know, or how, just to score a goal, and I think they will. Now, that's not to say Stockport can't score as well. They've scored in 4 of the last 5 games, but I think the way that they lost in the week, it shows that they can concede goals against good teams, and Bolton are a good team at the moment, a team that will be fighting for a playoff place come the end of the season, no doubt about that. So we'll go to goals conceded now across England, across the last 10 games, and we can see Burnley have conceded just 3 goals in the last 10. The top 5, interestingly, consists of 0 teams from the Premier League. We have seen a lot of goals in the Premier League and not a lot of clean sheets. You know, even teams like Man City, Arsenal, they are losing games, they are conceding goals. Liverpool have conceded goals as well, despite, you know, winning the games. They still go behind, whether it's to Brighton or Forest scored against them as well. They conceded twice to Arsenal. And on the other side of that coin, you've got AFC Fylde, who we will take a look at as well. There's some interesting data there. And Crawley Town, 23 goals in 10 games. They are facing Huddersfield. Not an easy game for them. Bristol Rovers, Lincoln, we will come to that game as well. There are some interesting data points for many of these teams, so stick with us. Now, we scroll down to over 1.5 goals and we see AFC Fylde again. 10 of the last 10 games have seen 2 or more goals. The same is true for Wolves, Barnsley and Chelsea. And then the 100% records end. Swindon Town against MK Dons could be one of the games to look out for here, actually, because both of them are on 9, whereas some of these teams, you see Fylde on 10, but Gateshead on 6, Wolves on 10, Southampton on 8, another pretty good game to look out for. But Swindon, MK Dons, both on 9, so potential for goals in that one. So as we continue to scroll down here, you've got a pretty crazy stat, and any teams that appear in this top 5 usually pretty crazy, but Bristol Rovers here, 7 of the last 10 games have ended with 4 or more goals being scored. So we will take a look at this Bristol Rovers data, and incidentally, they have faced more shots on target in the last 10 games than any team in that data set. 67 shots on target faced. And they now face Lincoln. And let me just show you something from Lincoln. This is probably one of the best away records in England. They have lost 1 away game since the 1st of January. So in terms of 2024 away records, that is fantastic. But what is very interesting is that 1 defeat came in the most recent League One game. They since went away to Cheshire United, who you would expect them to win in the majority of times that they played them. They are a much better team. But yeah, interesting that they are now looking to bounce back from their first away defeat since the 1st of January. And they are playing Bristol Rovers. And we'll just take a look at their home form because it is much better than their away form. We just looked at their away form for a second there. It is a sea of red. But at home, they are much better. There's still some defeats in there. And in a similar fashion to the Bolton game that we looked at, I feel like Lincoln to simply score, I think it's around 1.25, 1.26. It's low, but if you're pairing it with something else, you know, I think it's quite a safe bet given how Bristol City are playing at the moment. No team has faced more shots on target. And in terms of conceding goals, they concede in the majority of home games, and in the majority of games, their overall form shows more red than green. The FA Cup game, again, you would expect them to win. If we look at the League One data only, we can see that they don't draw many games, and that means that every game contains goals. And just finally, the last meeting between these teams in March was a 5-0 victory for Lincoln City. Now, we mentioned AFC Fylde, and here they are, they're hosting Gateshead, and we saw them on the last 10 because they conceded 2 or more in 7 of the last 10 games. That is not good enough, is it? And we look at Gateshead here, who have scored in every away game, and Fylde are conceding an average of 2.13 goals per game. 75%, incidentally, of games home and away for both of these teams have ended with BTTS landing. No 0-0 away from home for Gateshead. Here's a look at the overall form. They are 20th in the National League, AFC Fylde, and they are hosting 4th placed Gateshead. We'll take a look at the results to see that there are 3 victories since the opening day of the season, and it is now 6 games at home without a clean sheet. And it's not just that they're not keeping a clean sheet, is it? They're conceding 4, 2 and 5. They conceded 5 in the previous game, 2-2, 1-1, 4. 0-0 against Maidenhead, who were 22nd at the time. And they play Gateshead now, who their home record is good. Their away record is a little bit indifferent. They've scored in every away game that they've played, Gateshead, but they have failed to capture the home form, that is for sure. So with that said, again, I might gravitate towards BTTS because for Fylde, we saw that scoring is not the issue really, is it? Okay, Altrincham, that was terrible. 3-0 down at half-time, similar to the Wycombe game that we looked at before, Stockport against Wycombe, was it? 3-0 down at half-time. In fact, it's identical. But that just means that the fans will be expecting a performance. It means that the players will really, really want to put it right. And they've scored in 5 games before that, and 6 out of 8 outings this season. So BTTS, what do you think the odds will be for this one? I would say around 1.5, 1.63, which is a bit higher than I thought it would be. What about the probability model? The model is giving us 1.65 as well. I'm going to put that on as my prediction. And you can see there, the away win is 1.64. So BTTS, even if Gateshead are to win this 2-3-1, will AFC Fylde score? Can they score? Can they bounce back from that 5-0 win? Let us all know in the comments. And we will jump to Bet365 in a moment. We'll take a look at some more data and then jump to Bet365 and use everything that we've seen in this video so far to formulate a slip. Now, just looking at the teams here that have conceded more than once, AFC Fylde fall into that category, as we just mentioned. Shrewsbury as well against Burton, who have also seen it in 7, so that could be an interesting game. Ebbsfleet, another team in the National League. Wolves, of course, we know about their form, but I actually want to look at the better teams for this one. If you're looking at potential under bets, you've got Millwall, Burnley, Swansea and Yeovil, who in the last 10 games have not conceded more than once in any of those games. That is pretty impressive, and Swansea and Burnley face off this weekend. I mean, it's got 4-4 written all over it now, hasn't it, given those data points. On to BTTS, this is one of my favourite markets, so this is a very fun list for me. Brentford, Woking and Wolves all with 9 out of 10. Brentford versus Bournemouth should be a fantastic game. No clean sheet for Brentford this season and just 1 for Bournemouth. Can you guess who it came against? Arsenal. And if Bournemouth go there and play as well as they did against Manchester City, then I think Thomas Frank will be continuing to look for a clean sheet after the international break. Maybe he'll be writing to Santa for a clean sheet come Christmas. Odds are quite low for this game, as you might expect. 1.5 for BTTS in Brentford against Bournemouth. BTTS and over 2.5 goals, 2.35. I think that could be a pretty good single, or potentially a double if you were to put it with something else. Now, if cards is more your game, here is some data for you. In terms of total yellow cards, Nottingham Forest, 68 in the last 10 games, and they are being fouled an awful lot. If you look at yellow cards 4 here, they don't appear. West Ham more than any other team. Sutton United and Salford also tied. Southampton and Preston make up the top 5 there. And in terms of yellow cards for the opponents, we can see Newcastle with 39. Forest with 39. They are playing Newcastle, who have 34. So 2 of the top 5 coming up against each other. I've already looked at the odds and they are absolutely abysmal. Not worth it. Both teams to get a card is like 1.09 or something like that. Absolutely terrible card markets at the moment. In the Premier League, I must say, because we found some absolutely incredible value in the Champions League in the previous video, teams to get the most cards was providing some great value. So we can see here we are coming to the end of the page, and what I will do now is jump to Bet365. So based on all the data, this is what we are looking at. Walsall against Crewe, one of the standout games in that division. Walsall in great form, Crewe also in good form, not losing many games, but both teams capable of scoring. 1.83 is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in this slip, which as you can see is 16.65 at the moment. Wycombe or draw, 1.4. Barnet and Oldham over 2 goals. This one is already one that I might take off. I'm not sure. I can just 1-1 is screaming at me for that game for some reason, but we will see. Bolton to get a goal. AFC Fylde and Gateshead BTTS. That one is one that I'm quite confident about. Bournemouth Brentford BTTS at 1.5, as we just saw. And then Bristol Rovers Lincoln 1.25. Let me know what you think about that in the comments, and give me a second and I will trim away some of the fat. So it has become a fourfold, which, usually that is a bit too much for me. I do suggest doubles or trebles, but for this week we will allow it, seeing as though we were looking at over 100 teams in our last 10 data. 4.75 are the odds. Let me know what you think about this one. Walsall Crewe BTTS at 1.83. Bolton to score a goal, as they have done in the majority. Gateshead, AFC Fylde, BTTS, Bristol Rovers, Lincoln City. Lincoln with that incredible away form up until the most recent League One game. How will they bounce back? Lincoln to score a goal, 1.25. Let me know what you think about that in the comments, and just a quick plug right now to the BetSlip Generator Telegram bot. I've not plugged it in a while, I just keep forgetting to do it, to be honest. It uses the BetSlip Generator API and the BetSlip Generator front end, which you can use yourself, and it'll just send bet slips from it. Value bets sometimes, different leagues, And yeah, you can go and check it out. And also the Discord as well. If I'm not able to record a video, I'll be posting thoughts and stats and data much like this in the Discord on a daily basis, so you won't miss anything. Pro users can enter the Discord for free. And of course, let me know who you support in the comments, and you will be automatically entered into a draw to win Odd Alerts Pro, which gets you access to all of the tools on the site: value bets, quick filters, backtesting, dropping odds, player foul alerts. There is a lot to it. Alerts on live odds as well, of course. That's where it all started. And I hope you've appreciated this video. And if you like it, please hit like, share and subscribe and all that other stuff. I don't know. Just do what you need to do. Thanks.